It's Thursday, August 24th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight, you will finally hear the tale of the front row crew. Dun dun dun! Let's do this! So I'm at work today, and for those of you who do not know, I work alone in an office in the middle of nowhere.
There are stories about that Scott probably can't tell on the air.
Yes, and people really don't seem to pay attention to what I'm doing or give me a lot of instructions on what to do. I mean, they didn't even do that when I was working next to them in the same office in New York City. But nonetheless, today I got an email that said, "Hey, how is X coming along?" And I said, "X is about 90% done." And they were like, "Awesome! All right." And I was like, "Okay." And for those of you who don't know, well, of course,
you said for those of you who don't know twice.
I know. I don't know why I said that again. But let me tell you, I haven't worked on X for an entire week. In fact, in all of this week, I have done zero work at work. I have played Fire Emblem and browsed the web at work. That's about it.
Well, all I have to say is that if you keep this up for another 2 weeks uninterrupted, you'll beat my IBM record of not doing work.
Yeah, I think actually, though, next week I am going to finish the final 10% of X.
Well, see, my rule when it comes to counting not doing work, if you do work for less than 1/2 hour per day, I consider it not working at all.
No, I think what I'm actually going to do is work all day for like 2 or 3 days and just finish the whole thing, and it'll be perfect and amazing.
See, I wish I could do that, but at my job, most of my work involves just waiting for other people to do the piece of their crap so that I can then do all my paperwork and finish everything up.
Yeah, see, my work, as soon as someone gives me, tells me what they want made, I could just make it, and it's all me, and I can do whatever and get it done. And I realize now that the people at my company are never going to give me instructions as detailed as I would like them to give me. So I pretty much have to take what they ask and then do my own thing and, do what I think is best. And apparently they'll be pleased with it no matter what I come up with. So that's what I'm doing from now on because I don't really care if I get fired. I'm bored sitting in the middle of nowhere.
They're not going to fire you. I've learned that people you have to be such a fuck up to be fired.
But here's the thing. When I first got to the company, they were firing people. People I thought were cool and doing work. And I've seen some internal thing. Well, I don't know, but people talk about, oh, so-and-so isn't really good at their work and all this kind of stuff.
You know what? As far as I'm concerned, very few of the people I've ever worked with really were good at the job they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's true.
I'd say less than 10%.
Yeah. But, the point is that they fire people where I work. And, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been having the opposite issue lately. I wish I had work to do. I have so little work to do, and I do it all, and then I kind of look like I'm busy, or I wait for more work to come, or I ask for work. But I'm starting to meet more of my coworkers, and I'm talking to more people around the office and in the other sites. And without fail, every time people oh, what did you do before? What do you do? And I tell them, I was a Linux sysadmin, and I did development for this, and I worked IBM, and blah, blah, blah. And they stare at me, and they always ask in the exact same tone, "So, why are you here?"
Because you're paying me more to do less.
Yeah, except the thing is, I probably still did less at IBM. I did more real work, but I did a lot less total work. I mean, IBM, I'd basically do nothing, but then they'd ask me for something, like, do X, and I would do X wonderfully and immediately, and then there was nothing to do for another month.
Mm-hmm.
Other than, busy work that I could generally avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, maybe we'll start a business in Beacon.
Maybe.
It's looking more and more attractive as time goes on.
Yeah, even if it's financially terrible, it'll be a lot more interesting, and I won't feel like shit. I'll feel like I'm doing something with my life.
Yeah, because
and that's more important to me than money right now.
Once my student loans are paid off, I could live on very little money relative to what I need now to survive.
Yep.
I mean, I could probably live pretty comfortably on $30,000 a year if I didn't have all my debt. Now, I think I could manage to run a business where I could make at least $30,000 a year, or at least I could make enough money on the side to round out that much money.
Yeah, maybe. It really depends. We got to learn more about starting a business. But, a lot of people out there run businesses that aren't really smart, and we're pretty damn smart. I mean, they're butchers. They run a butcher shop.
See, here's the thing.
And,
While a computer shop would be the optimum thing in terms of enjoyment, I think the best business we could open in this area is a sub shop in the vein of DeBella's.
Yep, I agree.
I'm reasonably certain that if we got together the capital and did that, we could make a shit ton of money. But for a number of years, we would have to personally manage and work at a sub shop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell you what, you work at the sub shop, right? And I'll
No.
sit at home.
I'll manage the sub shop, and you can work at it.
You can bake the bread.
I'll bake the bread. You can do everything
set
else.
up the point of sale systems. Yeah, all right. Now you can see why we still have to work at shitty jobs.
Yeah, though I have another completely unrelated Scott bit of news here.
All right.
Because recently, now we had the week of awesome and everything, and one advantage of that was that we got to hang out with a lot of friends we don't get to see often, like James and Lisa who were in Texas. But at one point, it ended up being myself, Scott, and Yuko driving together to the shore.
Uh-huh.
And Scott and I didn't have our voices so much. So it was mostly Yuko talking and us listening and nodding and periodically saying things, then going, because our throats hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since Otakon and the shore and all this time we hung out with all these people, Scott has been pretty much talking like a tiny, bastardized Yuko.
Well, whenever there are people out there who have sayings. I have sayings. There are things I say often, like, oh God.
The word penis.
There are many, people have, every person who's a real person tends to have catchphrases. And Yuko, like most people, has some catchphrases.
Oh, mans. By the by.
And by the by.
Now
oh mans was very apparent to me. I realized oh mans was a Yuko catchphrase, and recently I decided to steal it. Oh, I didn't actually consciously decide to steal it.
Yeah, it's more like I noticed that he was saying it a lot.
Yeah, like it just rubs off. I remember in high school there was a kid, Brandon something, and not Rim. Rim's real name is Brandon. But,
yeah, one of my names.
Yeah, your real name. So, and he would always say like Dos Equis. I don't know why he said Dos Equis. If you don't know, Dos Equis is that Mexican alcohol with the 2 X's on it.
Because dos is 2.
And Equis is
X.
X. Yes. And he would just be like, Dos Equis. And I'd be like, ooh, Dos Equis. And like all of a sudden a whole group of people that like were closer to him, I just rubbed off than me in physics class. But other people he talked to, like it would rub off on them and they'd say Dos Equis a lot.
Well,
I don't know what the hell it was.
General, it seems to be more a thing among geeks than other people lately, is that these sorts of mannerisms and catchphrases are viral, and they spread like wildfire among people who are susceptible to them. And independent of that, it is generally known that people who are perceived as being charismatic or having some sort of presence, this is stuff we talked about in all those communications classes I took at RIT, since I basically took the whole major. But one thing we learned about a lot was that people who appear charismatic, something they do either consciously or a lot of times subconsciously, is that they will mimic the body language, mannerisms, and sometimes accents of those around them. And Scott and I seem to do that a lot. Of course,
I do that a lot. I notice like sometimes like the way I talk will just change completely when I'm with different people.
I have a funny story where I was interviewing for a job. And at one point, one of the international business manager of the company I was interviewing with decided he wanted to talk to me. And he's this British guy. And he travels all over the world.
So you were just like, right.
I wasn't like that, but he starts talking to me. And I was talking normally, and then I realized halfway through that I was kind of doing a sort of fake British accent. And I totally didn't realize it, and I suddenly noticed it. And I was really I wasn't embarrassed. It was more that I didn't know what to do. Do I suddenly stop doing it? Do I just pretend I've got this accent? What do I do? And I was kind of like deer in headlights for a minute.
Yeah. What did he look? Did he look weird at you or anything?
He seemed to really like me.
Yeah, all right, that's cool.
I don't think he ever heard me talk normally, though. And it wasn't like I was talking like, get in the vase! Get in! Get in! Get in! Or anything. It was just, there was a little bit of, and I was saying words that I often don't normally say, and it was just,
like boot and schedule.
I did say leisure a number of times.
Lol.
Because he asked me what I do for fun, and I was like, well, in my leisure time, And the word that was actually the moment I realized what I was doing because I said leisure in a like I say leisure sometimes funnily, but I usually say leisure. And I realized when I said leisure that I said it because the guy was speaking British.
Yep. So,
But it's not just the whole front row crew does it. It's a very big thing among us
Yeah,
that
so
we
anyway.
all mimic each other.
so oh mans, I realized when I was saying oh mans that I was like, I said oh mans once and I was like, hey, that's a Yuko saying. I totally stole it. Oh well, I'll keep saying it because oh mans is cool. And I've been saying oh mans recently.
So today, Scott comes up and he says to me, so Rim, by the by.
And I didn't realize that by the by was a saying of anyone. I mean, I've heard it before in my life, but I didn't realize it was a Yuko thing or
Yeah, I
anything.
stopped him and I was like, Scott, you're turning into Yuko, except you're not nearly as cute.
Yeah, I never noticed that she said by the by at all. And I guess I'm going to stop saying that because it's not as cool
I would say that
it's not as cool as oh mans.
I would say that a good 2/3 of the conversation she starts with me begin with, hey Rim, or oh mans, by the by, or some permutation thereof.
Yeah. Oh mans.
Oh mans, by the by, you should know that
Oh womans.
that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
All right, anyway, we got some news, I guess.
Okay.
Even though it's funny, you guys out there always seem to say that, oh, we want to hear the news, don't get rid of the news. But we always get the most feedback from the throwaway crap we do before the news.
Yep.
So whatever. All right. There was a thing called Orkut. Orkut might be before your time for some of you younger internet kids.
Well,
because
I'll sum up the story of Orkut. Ready?
Well, first off, I'll sum it up in the it was a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
what it was.
Let me sum up the story. There was a guy who developed some social computing technology.
Social networking.
Yeah, he basically invented like MySpace, Friendster, I don't even know. And like he worked for Google and then he didn't work for Google, or he worked for someone else. That's it. He invented this shit at another company that was social website type stuff. And he went to Google, and at Google he made Orkut, and the other company was like, hey, you just made that here, and then you went to Google and made the same thing for them. What the hell?
Yeah, it was a really well-executed social networking thing that part of the gimmicks of it were that, one, you had to put your real contact information in and the real information about yourself, and you actually got in trouble if you lied in this thing. Like, they would get rid of you.
Yeah, and it was invite only.
Invite only was key.
Like most Google things.
Now, that worked really well because it kept the shitheads out because no one would give them invites for the longest time.
Yeah, and it also made it really interesting for the people running Orkut to see how the network was expanding, because you knew that every expansion to the network was a branch off of the guy who started it. So there's like this middle dot, and then you just saw who sent out lots of invites, who sent out only a few,
Yep.
who didn't send any. And
Like
you can make this big chart of all the people.
I think it was Steve Pomeroy who actually gave our group the first invite.
Yeah, because we knew about it, and he's like, oh, I didn't realize you guys were interested in that when we started talking about it. And then he invited all of us.
Yep, and then we invited a crazy ton of people, and we became huge proponents of it, and we would all sit on it like every day, making communities and talking and setting things up. Like, I made the Otakon community, which is still there, and we have the RIT anime community, which apparently I still own.
Oh, awesome.
Whatever.
Yeah, it took me forever to remember my password to this damn thing.
Yeah, so Orkut was ruined. Orkut eventually, like the Muslim hordes that tried to overrun Europe, like the Sea Peoples, the Philistines that overran Greece.
Philistines.
Philistines.
Whatever.
Anyway, the Portuguese-speaking Brazilians came one day, and within the span, not exaggerating, within the span of about 2 weeks, Orkut went from amazing and cool to utterly useless.
It was just dominated completely by Portuguese, Brazilian. Now, I got nothing against Brazil. Brazil's a cool place.
Yeah, and it wasn't even that people who don't speak English were using this thing, because
Yeah.
it was set up so that any languages can work, and it was really beautiful and unique. The Brazilians had no concept of internet etiquette. They had no concept of not spamming people, and basically there was nothing but Brazilian spam of Brazilians trying to trick other people into joining their communities and being their friends so that their numbers would go up so that they can get more people.
It was just craziness and utter chaos. Just basically like this flood of millions upon millions of Portuguese messages just flooding the system, completely filling up every box. And
They took over every community. They destroyed everything. They broke Orkut for a while with the massive amounts of spam they were sending to each other.
yeah, Orkut was real slow for a while, and because they were just filling it up with so much shit. It was basically vandalism.
And the funny part is, I saw a post by a Brazilian who wrote in English, and he basically said, to any of you who might be thinking that this is cool, don't be. I can read what these people are saying, and this is the bottom of the internet. Get out, get out, get out. And Orkut just collapsed completely, and we all fled.
But Orkut is still there.
Yeah, not only is it still there, but apparently now it's a den of child pornography.
Oh, really?
In Brazil. See, I had forgotten about Orkut. Orkut was this wonderful short chapter in my life. And I see on Slashdot a news story about Orkut. I didn't even read the story. I thought, Orkut, and I went there and I posted the quick story of what happened to Orkut. Because it seemed like the people commenting on whatever the story was had no idea what Orkut really was. They were talking about Google search, and they had no idea that Orkut
imagine
was
if MySpace existed for about a month and then disappeared. Because it was just full of crap. That's what Orkut is.
Yep. Now, the story doesn't really matter. I don't care about it. It was just an excuse to talk about Orkut. But basically, Brazilians were using Orkut to share child pornography, allegedly. And the Brazilian government has demanded that Google and Orkut hand over all of the information to track these people down. Google has said, fuck you, we're in America, send us some legal documents, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, it's about right.
And I don't know what's going to happen.
I mean, like, of course, if I was Google, I would go through the system cleaning up all the child porn, but I wouldn't give information to the Brazilian government unless they had...
Yeah, I mean, if I were Google, I would comply with the legal request. If I got served the real papers, I would cooperate 100%.
Well, not just that, but even if there are no legal papers, I would go around my little Orkut, getting rid of all the child porn.
Yeah, the problem I have with this is that the Brazilians seem to expect Google to cooperate in their investigation without any sort of, legal process.
Yeah, no matter what they were investigating, I wouldn't...
I mean, I gotta say, if a police officer bothers me and tries to get information out of me, I would probably not help them in any way, shape, or form unless they handed me a warrant or I was seeing a crime happening at that exact moment.
Yeah, I mean, the only real time I would give up information to a
Well, if I saw a guy with a knife yelling and screaming and laughing maniacally, covered in blood, running away.
Well, I was just going to say, if I was a witness to something and then a cop came around and was like, hey...
No, you don't... There was a story on Fark recently. That might not always be the best idea.
Really?
The story is a guy... I forget the exact story, so I'm going to pull the Pendulette thing here and make up a story that has the same basic facts.
Okay.
Crime was committed. I think it was a murder or something. Guy witnesses it. Guy goes to court, he's going to testify. Judge is afraid that this guy might not appear in court to actually testify for the real trial. Orders the guy arrested and keeps him in jail until the trial for months. Then, due to a clerical error, after the trial, they didn't let him out, and he sat in jail for a long time.
I heard that story.
Finally, someone fought on his behalf and got him out of jail. And I get the impression that events like this, while not of this magnitude, happen somewhat regularly in the U.S., where a judge or someone will detain someone to testify in an important case because they're afraid that they might not testify. And
the trick is, don't go to court until it's testifying time, because as soon as you walk into the courtroom, they can contempt you.
Yeah, but they could just put out a warrant and a subpoena and get you anyway.
But what are they arresting me for?
Oh, no, they put him under protective custodianship or something.
All right, so all I really have to do is whenever I'm a witness to anything, I call a lawyer immediately, and I say, you keep your eye on me. If anything happens to me, you got to come get my ass out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I just really... It's sad because I'm generally a very law and order person, but I don't trust the police at all.
Yeah. That's pretty... If I was a witness, though, and I wasn't worried about being locked in jail...
Oh, yeah, if it weren't for that,
I would tell them whatever I saw, sure.
Oh, yeah, because I definitely believe that if someone does something bad, you should, mitigate the damages.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, you got some news.
Yep. So Pluto, is it a planet, or is it not a planet?
Well, no, it is not a planet, by the by.
Yeah, well, it really all depends on the definition of planet. And for a while on the internet, I'd say about a couple years now, it's been a very large point of contention. What exactly constitutes a planet? What should constitute a planet? Et cetera, et cetera.
I never made the song, but I have this little sample here that I may or may not have added into what I'm just saying right now in post-production, but Rim doesn't give one shit about whether or not Pluto is a planet because Pluto is still there regardless of what I call it.
Yeah, really, I mean, the way the solar system is constructed and what rocks are floating around in it and where they float is not affected by the names we choose to apply to those rocks. So, anyway, some people seem to care about what's a planet and what's not. And it seems that their largest concern is elementary school textbooks.
Now, that is the if a teacher can't deal with telling their students, this book is somewhat out of date, children, and Pluto is not actually a planet because of blah, 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 blah. They can't handle that. They shouldn't be a teacher. Good God.
Yeah. I think what it is just that's, a whole nother show about how adults, underestimate children and treat them like children.
I think it's also...
And that's why they're children. If you treated them like adults, then they would become adults much quicker.
I think it's also a show about how when people want to resist change, they'll just look for anything they can to complain about whenever change comes.
Yep.
I mean, that is an asinine complaint. And... I don't know what they think. They think the committee is going to say, you know what? All right, for the elementary school students, Pluto is a planet.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell?
Anyway, here, I'm going to read this paragraph of stuff so that you can get the full facts of this debacle into your brain. A planet is a celestial body that is in orbit around the sun.
Check.
Has sufficient mass for its self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces so that it assumes a hydrostatic equilibrium, nearly round shape.
Check, I believe.
And has cleared the neighborhood around its orbit.
Up. Pluto hasn't done that.
Dun, dun, dun.
Pluto's too little. It didn't do that.
A dwarf planet is a celestial body that is in orbit around the sun.
Check.
Has sufficient mass for its self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces so that it assumes a hydrostatic equilibrium, nearly round shape.
Oh, man.
Has not cleared the neighborhood around its orbit and is not a satellite.
All right, so the moon now is not going to be considered a planet like some people feared.
No, the moon is a satellite. Therefore, it is not a planet nor dwarf planet. And, the real thing here is that, you have to clear, you can't just clear, the neighborhood around where you are. You have to clear your orbit. So, you take the orbit of the Earth and you draw this big circle on the star map or whatever, and you say, hey, is there any shit floating around in the orbit of Earth? No, there's no shit floating around in the orbit of Earth. Well, then Earth has cleared its orbit. You look at Pluto, and you look at Pluto's orbit, and you say, hey, wait a minute. Neptune is in Pluto's orbit. Pluto has not cleared its orbit. And the moon, someone might say, oh, the moon is a planet because, the definition of planet doesn't discount satellites. But the moon has not cleared its orbit of, I don't know, the Earth, which is kind of in the way. So,
well, the thing is, I have read that there's a chance the moon is going to eventually escape Earth and kind of become a free-roaming body.
That could happen. And apparently I read in some places that certain astro scientists of various sorts believe the moon and the Earth to actually be two planets sort of switching places and orbiting each other in a duality,
Well, by the by, I'm sure Lara will, if she listens to Geeknights tonight, will probably correct us on something we've said.
Yeah, I know. She's the only person we know that knows anything about astro whatnots.
Yeah, astro whatnots.
Hey, that tells you how much we know.
She can tell us about the Kajigger.
Yep, the Kajigger and the flying rocks in space.
Oh man, speaking of space, it's time for Things of the Day.
I am the pusher robot.
I am the shover rim.
Here to protect you from the terrible secret of space.
Do not trust the Scott robot. He is malfunctioning. I am here to protect you. I am here to protect you from the terrible secret of space.
Please stand near the top of the stairs so I can protect you. I am the pusher robot. Stand near the top of the stairs, please.
All right.
I am pushing the bread into their mouths.
No. You shove the bread down the people's throats.
No.
You push the people around, the blind people.
Whatever.
Space has a terrible power.
Yes, this is a classic thing of the day.
Yes, I can't believe we forgot to use it during Classic Week. Well, Classic 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah.
This is just an old Flash video from, God, like 5 years ago.
It's really just a Flash music video to this song.
If you've ever seen the words peck, chewy, umph, or ever heard anything about the terrible secret of space, and you wondered what the hell that was, here's your answer.
I'm not exactly sure if this is really the origin of Pack Chewy Umph.
Well, all I have to say is that this is where most people would know it from, if they know where it's from at all.
Yeah, if you search for Pack Chewy Umph on Google, guess where it takes you?
The terrible secret of space?
Yeah, that's pretty.
Well, I mean, space has a terrible power.
It does indeed.
Yeah, by the by.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I saw this thing on the internet this morning.
God, this is great.
And it's some guys watching a Pokemon movie.
Now,
and
I'll let you.
Okay, yeah, Pack Chewy Umph. That's where Pack Chewy Umph originated, at least according to the Urban Dictionary. It says the Urban Dictionary says Pack Chewy Umph. Question: do you have stairs in your house?
The thing is, I've never heard Pack Chewy Umph other than in reference to that or from someone who didn't know what it was.
I think I saw a T-shirt that said Pack Chewy Umph on it.
I've seen that a lot. I assumed it was to the shover pusher robots.
Oh, anyway. So, back to this Pokemon movie. There's a video here of two guys. They seem to be New York, North New Jersey type guys, maybe Brooklyn guys.
Yeah, I get the definite impression of Brooklyn.
Yeah. And they're watching a Pokemon movie. I think it might be the second or third one, it looks like, because it has
That was the like 48th one. There's so many freaking Pokemon movies.
I don't know that much about Pokemon movies, but I know quite a bit about the first two sets of Pokemon games, because I played them. I played Pokemon Red and Pokemon Silver. And I know about Pokemon Adventures, the excellent manga that everyone should read, which is the only Pokemon really worth reading. Anyway, these guys are watching a Pokemon movie, and this one guy starts going off about how Snorlax is freaking awesome. I mean, he's like, look at Snorlax, he's holding 10 Pokemon. Without Snorlax, they'd be screwed. Snorlax owns you.
Snorlax is fucking ripped.
Look, Snorlax is huge. He's more ripped than you. You couldn't hold 10 Pokemon. Get out of here. You don't know nothing. It's not Raichu, it's Pikachu. What do you know?
Now, while we generally don't speak that way, I mean, we're like that, but we're not that much like that.
Yeah.
It is not a representation of what the front row crew is like.
Yeah, we are much more articulate. And,
Erudite.
Erudite, that's the word.
However,
listening to these guys, go off, it's like, yeah, those are my people.
Yeah, honestly, I would say that in terms, because Anime World Order always talks about how different, the geek community is and the anime community is down in like Florida and everything. And RIT, where we became full geeks, when we ascended to like alpha geekery, we realize now that it is one of the geekiest places in the world.
Yeah, just about.
And I would say that the average dorm room or the average apartment in RIT that wasn't full of drunk frat guys who were the other half of RIT was full of people exactly like that video.
Yeah, we used to go over and play Mario Party with some friends quite a few times.
Oh my God, once again, I'll reference but not speak of the bamboo story.
Yes, but when we were there, we had shtick just like this. Like, that's where my vision comes from.
I have a vision.
Yeah.
I have a vision of a road. I won't spoil that.
And we would, let's think of some other stuff. Oh, that's right. Whenever DK showed up, we'd be like, DK! And we had a little DK, like, figurine and stuff, and we had a shtick going on with that. And there was another shtick where, when you're in Mario Party, when you're about to play a mini game, it shows you, like, a few mini games, to choose from. And obviously, it picks randomly. But we would call out what game we wanted to play, right? And very often, it would land on the game we called out, and we'd be like, is the magic microphone in it? Because we didn't actually have the GameCube microphone yet. This is Mario Party 4, and I think the microphone came out in Mario Party 6 or 7.
Yep. There was also the championship belts.
Yeah, we had WWF championship belts to give to the winners and stuff, but, it was basically watching us play Mario Party is exactly the same as those guys watching the Pokemon movie. Yeah,
I got to say, Mario Party Wii and WarioWare Wii, I think we're going to have to buy a front row crew Geeknights World WWF Yeah.
WWE.
No. Notice I said WWWF because we're geeks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to need some championship belts for that shit.
Why don't we just go to Hot Topic and get one of those belts that has an NES controller for the buckle?
That would probably be perfect.
Yeah, let's get one of those.
I think we're going to have to.
That way we don't give money to the stupid pro wrestling crap.
And we've said it often, and we'll say it again. There is a story about Wheel and Woe, competition, the championship belts, and most importantly...
The Vision and Bamboo.
Yes, I have a vision. I have a vision of us telling the story of Bamboo, but not tonight.
No, not tonight. You will be kept in suspense for all eternity until you hear the story of the Bamboo.
Good God, the Bamboo.
Good God.
The Bamboo is probably worse than being shot in the face with a clown pistol.
You kidding? I would take 30 clown pistols at point blank before
Well, you know
I
what?
took
I'll be
one
very
Bamboo.
blunt. I'll be very blunt. The Bamboo was one of the worst things that has ever happened to me in my life.
That's a pretty good life if the Bamboo's the worst ever thing.
I don't know. I would trade getting shot just a little bit instead of having to ever deal with that Bamboo again.
Yeah, that's true.
Because a little gunshot, just like a little graze on my arm.
Okay, that's enough of the Bamboo.
The fucking Bamboo.
Let's protect ourselves from the
Snorlax.
terrible secret of space.
All right.
Snorlax will protect us from the terrible secret
Doesn't
of space.
matter. We're not going to go too long. You can tell tonight's episode is kind of out there. We're kind of jumping all over the place.
That's what we try to do on Thursday. Give the people,
Yeah.
I
mean, Penn has his Monkey Tuesday. We have our Something Thursday.
crazy ass Thursday.
Yeah.
Woo!
I think it's more we're tired of doing podcast all week Thursday.
That's exactly what it is. Okay.
Yeah, now, a lot of people have wondered why, despite the fact that we are called Geeknights, we are at www.frontrowcrew.com. And in fact, we call ourselves the Front Row Crew.
Gee. And we offered no explanation for this whatsoever.
Well, we talked about it briefly way, way back in one of the earliest episodes of Geeknights.
I think those episodes might have actually dropped out of the feed.
Well,
They're so old.
Yeah, well, we can't have the feed be longer than that or FeedBurner will choke on it.
Yeah. Oh, and just so you know, if every episode of Geeknights, you can still find it at frontrowcrew.com.
Yes, all the way back to our inaugural episode on October 31st, 2005.
Take note.
In fact, that is generally when we change up seasons in Geeknights. But
We're gonna more on that in the future. We might.
Yeah.
I got some ideas about what we.
There
can
are
do.
also about 11 episodes from before then that will eventually be released to people who aren't cool enough to find them on their own as bonus content.
Dun, dun, dun.
Even though you probably don't actually want to listen to them.
No, you don't. Okay. So, Front Row Crew. I was a dude, and I went to high school in Connecticut. And then after high school, I went on this trip to Israel for 28 days, and then I came back, and then I went to the Rochester Institute of Technology.
So I was a child, and I was born in Detroit, Michigan. I went to school in Michigan. I lived my whole life in Michigan. And then on a pretty much total whim, I decided to go to RIT. And when I say total whim, I mean I can do an episode about how I pretty much completely randomly chose to go to RIT.
Okay, so I'm at RIT, and I have some kind of roommate guy, and he likes soccer a lot. And, he's a normal, cool guy. I got nothing against him, but, he's not a super geek, so we don't have too much in common other than, things that every guy has in common.
I have a roommate. I don't even remember his name because I never talked to him. He was completely uninteresting to me. We had nothing in common, and we pretty much ignored each other.
I only remember my roommate's name because it was slightly strange. His real name was Robert, but everyone called him Tom. But he spelled his name Thom.
That's kind of common because my middle name is Tom S. Thomas, and Thomas is spelled Thomas.
Oh, okay.
So that's why a lot of people spell Tom Thom.
All right, that's fine. But anyway, and I'm at this college, and I'm going to classes, doing my thing, and I'm looking for some friends, and looking to get with the geeks. And the first place I go to get with the geeks is the two most obvious places to go: the gaming club and the anime club.
I do the same, though I did not go to one of the early meetings of the anime club because I had, due to RIT's random freshman scheduling, a class that was 4 hours long during the anime club that I promptly dropped.
Yeah, well, I went to the first thing I went to was the very first anime club meeting at which I met Luke.
Yep, now all
because
of us...
he was greeting pretty much everyone who came in.
Now, pretty much most of the Front Row Crew, at least the core original Front Row Crew, were all at this particular meeting of the anime club.
But we didn't know each other.
I mean, if you go back
I basically,
in time,
like, I didn't really, make any friends at that first meeting, even though I talked to a bunch of people. I went back to my dorm alone after the meeting.
Yep.
But I definitely had a good time watching some anime there.
I went with my friend Ken, who came to RIT with me from our high school.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, if you go back, like, anime flashback, and it shows, like, the room in black and white, like the past, and all of us sitting in this big room in this huge sea of people, you can all the front row crew people have like those halos around them because destiny is about to bring them together.
Dun, dun, dun. So it's Tuesday, and it's time for the gaming club. And what do? I show up, and I'm like, oh, there's a gaming club. I bet someone there wants to play BattleTech with me, which is a game I had and loved and did not get many chances to play. So I had my little BattleTech box, and I walk over to the gaming club, and I'm standing around talking to some scary gamer types, And there's this guy Katsu there, and he's got this, he's an Asian dude, and he's got
the umbrella.
He's got this Japanese style umbrella. It's pretty cool, and he's talking about BattleTech with me, and I'm like, hey, a dude, what's up? And then, there's a whole bunch of other people there I'm not really talking to, kind of talking to, whatever. And this guy comes out, and he says, I'm running a Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition campaign. And the first thing my brain says is, 3rd edition? Look, I didn't know there was a 3rd edition.
Yeah. Now, granted, I'd been playing 3rd edition for a while already. Not a while, but I'd been playing it a little bit just because it came out pretty much right before I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, awesome. I'm going to get to play D&D again. My life will not change in any significant way because D&D was a big part of my high school life.
Yep. And immediately I go over to this guy, and I'm like, I'm in. And a whole bunch of other people come and say they're in. A lot of people. Like 20 people.
Now, of the 20 people, one of them I ended up dating. Half the other 9 faded into the background because they were worthless, or at least uninteresting. And everyone else pretty much immediately became the group of friends. We didn't have a name. We didn't even really recognize that we were a group of friends yet. It happened so kind of gradually and unnoticedly.
Yep. Well, I think what really did it is like I was sitting there and I didn't know how to make a 3rd ed character or anything, and the only ones who had players' handbooks, there were very few of them going around the table. And we didn't have cars or anything, so we couldn't exactly go get more. And we didn't have money either, being freshmen. And, there was Ken and Rim, and they had players' handbooks. So I was, mooching off of them and asking them questions because they knew what was going on.
Now, Ken and I, we met this kid. We didn't know his name, and he was kind of cool. He was a little tactless, little rude, but rude in the, kind of way we like the cool asshole kind of rude.
That's right.
So he was also noticeably Jewish.
What are you going to do?
Like it was kind of, I mean, it really came off strong. So for a while, we called him that Super Jew guy.
I thought you called me the Pimpin' Jew.
We called you the Pimpin' Jew as well.
Oh, okay.
You it was something Jew every time.
All right.
And
J-O-O.
Gibbs. So I'd see him walking around Cavs and be like, hey, it's that guy.
Yep. And then, one day at Gracie's, which is a place where freshmen eat at RIT, I saw Rim and Ken sitting at a table. And I didn't even know they were Rim and, what their names were or anything.
Yeah, none of us knew any of our names.
Yeah. So I just kind of walk up to them, to their table with my tray after I was done eating, and they were still eating. And I said, hey.
And I was thinking, all right, I think I have a friend in college now.
Yep.
I think we're, And then over time,
And then I said, hey, and they were like, hey. And then I just kind of shrugged and walked away because I didn't have anything else to say to these complete strangers.
Yeah. But over time, eventually it started to coalesce that bigger and bigger groups of us ended up bumping into each other at Gracie's, and eventually we started eating together, kind of by chance. Because before, I would either eat with Ken, or I'd eat alone, or I ate with people from my floor, but I really didn't like any of the people from my floor.
Yeah, I think I ate with my roommate twice.
They were all kind of drunken, scary, boring, annoying people.
Yep. So we had this group of people that we played D&D with, those of them that were freshmen that ate at Gracie's.
Yep.
And attended RIT, eating dinner together at this long table.
And in addition, some new people who weren't playing in the game, but we met through an anime club and the gaming club started to join, and it ended up being, not at any given time, but there were about 20 people who would come and go from these nightly 6 o'clock dinners.
Yeah, all right, now let's go to the anime club where the stuff really started to go down. It was like the gaming club was the starting bit. It was sort of like the starter in the car, but the anime club, that was like the alternator.
Yep, because the gaming club, while it was great for gaming, there was very little unity and a lot of scary people.
Yep. So at the anime club, it just so happened that a lot of the same people were chilling there, you know? So, hey, cool. So we sat near each other at the anime club, and we sat near each other in the front row.
For some reason,
dun.
we'd always sit in the front row, and then we always made jokes about the back row people, because anyone who didn't get to the club early enough, who was in our now growing friend group, was forced to sit in the second row. So they were losers, obviously.
Yeah, we would get to club mad early and fill the front row. And we would harass the e-board, and we'd harass the people around us. And we'd yell out shit and be generally rude and hilarious.
I mean, it got to the point where we'd all show up to club. Like, club opened at 7. Like, that was when the room opened. And club didn't start until 8. But as far as we were concerned, club started at 7.
That's right.
So we'd show up, kind of take over the room and make all sorts of mischief. The e-board was always like, why are you guys always here so early? Don't you have anything better to do, like homework? And we were like, what? Yeah, pretty much none of us ever did schoolwork.
No, we did not. Yet, look at us now, highly paid technology professionals.
I wonder how that happened.
That homework. All right.
Yeah, I should go back and explain to all my professors that my no homework policy worked just fine for me.
Yep. Anyway, so, you know, I don't know where we actually decided to call ourselves the Front Row Crew.
But long before we self-identified as this, the executive board of the anime club called us those front row guys, and eventually the Front Row Crew.
Yeah. They generally disliked us, and they think that at one point they wanted to get rid of us and kick us out of the club or something. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah, the problem with that was that we were a big part of the club at that point, because us and our extended group of friends comprised a good quarter of the people in that room.
Yep. So, yeah, generally what happened is, like, early on in our in the life of the Front Row Crew, like, we just go to anime club together, and then we would just walk back to the dorms talking along the way in a group, and then we would just kind of stand in a group talking outside the dorms until there wasn't much more to say, and then we go back to our rooms.
Yep, and the group would slowly whittle down, and a lot of times it ended up being me and sometimes Katsu or Ken and this fuzzy-haired guy who joined kind of later. Like, he didn't go to the same clubs as us, but we always saw him because he had this fuzzy curly hair.
Yeah.
We called him Trotsky.
Yep. But he was, that's Greg.
Yeah. So then it always ended up being like a few of us talking for like another hour after everyone else went upstairs to whatever their building was.
Yep. Now, one day, I was walking back to my dorm. Now, the dorm I lived in was different than everyone else's in that it was unrenovated. It was bigger. It had bigger rooms. It had nicer lounges, even though it was unrenovated.
Well, it had bigger lounges.
Yeah, that's true. And most of all, it was drugs and alcohol-free dorm, which means there weren't drunk guys vomiting in the hallways and shit.
Yes, as opposed to Fish B, where I live, where the slogan was, "We drink like fish." If you can understand the clever humor.
Yep.
That
And also, the RA of my dorm, DJ, was the coolest dude in the RAT dorms.
Meanwhile,
Note my City of God reference.
my RA, there is quite a story about.
It was the student council president.
Yeah, but not then. He was just the RA who hired strippers for the floor.
Awesome. And no wonder he became the student council president the year after.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode.
He was an okay guy, though.
Yeah, except he got power and then he squandered it.
That's right. Because I think he realized that he was in a position of meaningless power. He had power over things that didn't matter in the grand scope, so he had no problem using them for personal enjoyment.
He pretty much just bought pizza for his friends.
Yep, that's cool. All right, anyway. So the dorm that I walked back to, that fuzzy-haired guy, Greg, when I walked back to it, he was walking with me the whole way, and I was like, wait a minute. You live in the same dorm on the same floor as me, and just in a different room. What the hell? How come I had never seen you here before? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then I continued I pretty much bothered him all year whenever I would just go down the hallway, knock on his door, and bother him a lot.
Yep. Now, also, two of the other really core people of the crew were Pete and Alex.
Yeah, they were two guys who were in the D&D game, and Alex is downstairs right now. And Pete,
Alex is currently living with us until he finds an apartment in Poughkeepsie or Beacon.
Yeah, and Pete is around somewhere, and they were both in the D&D game, and we were making friends with them pretty well. And we didn't realize that, hey, they were roommates, just by random chance. Pete and Alex were roommates. Two pretty similarly minded guys just happened to be put together by RAT. What do you know? And so they were hanging out with us. And eventually what happened is instead of standing outside by the dorms, then walking back to our rooms,
We'd all go back to my room and have an orgy.
no, we all went back to my floor in my dorm and go to that lounge there.
Because no one was ever in it.
Yep. We'd go back to the Peterson 3 lounge and hang out there.
Now, as time went on, the crew got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it wasn't really called the crew. It was just this huge group of like 30 people in all who we all knew. And it was this kind of social group. But then, as time continued, there was definitely a sort of consolidation. And the crew itself, the front row crew, formed. And it was actually a small, very close-knit group. And then we had the periphery, which we knew. And basically, we never progressed beyond the stage of stand outside and talk with the periphery.
Yeah, it was like there were people who were like friends of the crew, but then there was the core, and the core didn't change much.
It got to the point with the core where we would, on a weekend, end up in Peterson 3 pretty much expectedly. Like, we would all expect that everyone would be in Peterson 3 at some point on Friday, and we'd stay there until 11:58. Then we'd run to the the corner store.
Yep.
I forget that I can't use all those RIT-isms.
I know.
And then we'd, buy Red Baron 4 cheese pizzas before they closed at midnight. And we'd go back and eat them. And then we'd hang out for like another couple hours.
Yeah, generally what happened on an average day a week, on the average weekday, if it was Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, well, Monday, Wednesday, which are the non-club days, because gaming club was on Tuesday and anime club was on Thursday, we would just, go about our daily business. At dinner, everyone would be dinner at generally the same time.
Yeah, between 6 and 7, we'd all just kind of filter into Gracie's.
Sitting at the same big table, and then that whole table would finish eating and go to Peterson 3, and then go to bed.
Yep. Now, the thing is, we'd hang out, and it started out, around 11, we'd all go to bed, and then midnight, and then 1.
And then 3.
I got to the point where, it'd be 4 in the morning, and I'd be like, I got class at 8. I should leave within an hour or so.
Yeah.
It got really bad. We didn't sleep at all.
Yeah, and then on Tuesdays, we'd go to the gaming club, which was basically right after the Gracies, we went to the gaming club, and we would game and play D&D, and then after D&D, we'd go to Applebee's.
And get the half-off appetizers.
At the half-off appetizers on Tuesday nights, and then after that, we would go to Peterson 3, and then we would go to bed, eventually. Thursdays, it was a similar thing. We'd go to Anime Club. Then we might or might not eat out at Jay's Diner.
We usually ate out at Jay's, as long as we had money.
Yep, and then we went back to Peterson 3 and hung out. And this is all freshman year, by the way.
Now, weekends consisted of utter chaos.
Yeah, because, Friday night, it's like, it's Friday night, go to Peterson 3.
Now, notice...
Then we wouldn't leave Peterson 3 until Sunday night.
Now, notice that there is no time in here for homework or classes.
Nothing.
Literally, and I'm not exaggerating at all, class time was between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. And with few exceptions, no one ever did schoolwork or had classes outside of those times.
Yeah, generally.
And none of us had jobs for the longest time, except for the people who worked at Gracie's.
Well, now, what were we doing in Peterson 3 all this time? Well, here's an example of some of our activities. Activity number 1, watching anime.
We watched so much anime.
We had no less than, I think, 5 anime marathons. We watched all of Escaflowne, all of Evangelion, all of...
KO Century Beast.
KO Century Beast, which is short. We watched all of the El Hazard OAV.
Yep, we watched a whole ton of movies.
A whole ton of anime movies. Lots of Lupin.
Because remember,
a lot of stuff that I fell asleep during.
The RIT Anime Club has one of the largest anime libraries I've ever seen.
Yep. And we just took lots of anime out of it and watched as much as we could on crappy-ass VCR and a tiny TV.
We would play a lot of Dungeons & Dragons.
We played a lot of D&D, and we played a lot of other RPGs as well. We played Cobalt Ate My Baby in Peterson 3.
We played a lot of video games.
Yeah, generally, most of the time we played N64 stuff because that's the system we had. We didn't have a GameCube yet. That would come the next year. And so we played Smash Brothers and Mario Party and that sort of thing.
Yep.
I think we even played some Atari action.
We would also often just sit in there.
Yep, we sat in there and talked and hung out.
Yeah, mostly talking and hanging out.
Oh, and most of all, we played fucking Battletech.
Fucking goddamn. We used to break into other places to play Battletech.
Because they had nicer tables.
Or just because we were bored. Like, a lot of times, if we ran out of anything to do, or if we were just talking, we'd start wandering around campus. And we'd talk while we wandered. But it was just like we were sitting in the dorms. We just happened to be walking around. And the moment we found an unsecured conference room, that was when the Battletech got broken up in whatever that room was.
Yeah, we played Battletech for hours and hours and hours, and always crazy stuff happened, like the quad-legged mech that wouldn't die,
Yep.
or the pristine mech that got hit in the head with a Gauss rifle and blew up.
Yep.
All that kind of crazy awesomeness that Battletech brings with it.
Now,
So,
in addition to all that in Peterson 3, remember I said we did schoolwork between 10 and 4 Monday through Thursday? We did something else during that time, and that was play Counter-Strike.
lots of Counter-Strike.
Pretty much any moment.
And then Tribes 2, and then when Tribes 2 died, Counter-Strike again.
Any moment where we were not in a class that we could not skip, hanging out with everyone, or sleeping, we were playing Counter-Strike.
Or Tribes 2.
Yep.
Oh, that was a good freshman year. That was just freshman year. Wait till you hear what happens the rest of the years of college.
God, we'll have to do separate shows about all that.
Yep. The point of it is the Front Row Crew is a group of awesome people who met freshman year at the Rochester Institute of Technology and remained awesome and together until today.
I mean, it's honestly to not... we all consider each other family at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I consider the crew to be no different than my blood relatives.
Yep. And frontrowcrew.com is a website that will host the exploits of the entire Front Row Crew, not just Geeknights, hopefully.
I mean, eventually, if other people start making awesome things...
And not being shit talkers.
Ahem. But there are going to be all sorts of something.frontrowcrew.coms.
Yeah, like if someone makes, I don't know.
By the by.
Yeah. If someone were to make, say, another podcast or a webcomic in the Front Row Crew, or if we were to open Front Row Crew Studios actually got to making some anime music videos, those would be, at like studios.frontrowcrew.com, Geeknights is just the premier central deal right now, but hopefully we will expand in the somewhat distant future as we get our shit together.
Yep. But I mean, in college, it wasn't just the fact that we became such close friends, that we all had very, very similar interests. I mean, we were all fans of H.P. Lovecraft. We were all fans of anime. We were all fans of
I actually
D&D.
didn't know what H.P. Lovecraft was till everyone told me, but then I became a fan of it.
There was a point at which you read Call of Cthulhu to all the freshmen when we were seniors.
Yeah, well, there were other people there too.
Yeah.
I didn't finish reading it either. Everyone fell asleep.
But we were also a group of people that, as our extended crew, pretty much put all of our effort into hanging out and having fun with friends.
And what do we do today?
We hang out and have fun with friends.
Goddamn.
It is not a lie to say that we put more effort into hanging out than we put into all of our schoolwork combined.
Yeah. And all we do today is we go to big-ass conventions and hang out, and we try to find new people to hang out with, and we hang out with the old people. I mean...
Or Geek Nights. What do we do? We're basically doing the same thing we'd be doing if we were just hanging out without microphones and there was anyone to listen to us.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone who stopped by our hotel room at Otakon, and for anyone who heard about it, there were a lot of freaking people in there. That was Front Row Crew. All those people.
Yep.
And you know what you were doing? Hanging out.
Our lives consist wholly of hanging out. Everything else is just pursuant to being able to hang out.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't eat, I can't hang out because I'll be dead.
Yep.
And if I want to eat, I got to buy food, which means I got to have a job, I got to make money.
And a lot of times we will go places and do things. But we do these things mostly to give us a new context in which to hang out.
Yep. Because hanging out in the same context repeatedly, as we know from doing it for 5 or 6 years.
I mean, like some night we'd go to downtown Rochester and wander around at night hanging out. Or we'd wander around the campus hanging out. Or we'd bust into the liberal arts building at night hanging out.
And every Thursday, we hung out in the front row. And that made us the Front Row Crew.
So, you now know the terrible secret of our origin.
Dun dun dun. We'll have to shove you down the stairs.
There will be many episodes in the future. At some point, we'd like to get each and every member of the Front Row Crew on and interview them separately as to what they think the Front Row Crew is and what it means.
I think we should just get one show with everyone, and then we can just go around and, introduce everyone. So it's sort of be like a cast of characters type of thing.
Yeah.
Like a who's who in the Front Row Crew.
I mean,
I'm a poet. No, I don't know it.
The thing is, the Front Row Crew grows, but not quickly at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of friends. There are a lot of people who know us. I mean, if you go to Otakon, it's kind of scary how many people are like, hey, Scott, oh my God, hey, Rim, oh my God, hey. We have a lot of friends, but to actually be considered a member of the Front Row Crew, that is pretty much a level of total and unmitigated trust.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, people from the crew have an open invite to stay in our house at any time, and we don't even think twice about it.
Yeah, like if someone just showed up, I'd be like, hey, what's up? Even if they live far away, like Texas or something.
Yeah, and we know that if we suddenly appeared in Texas, James and Lisa would say, hey, come in, and then we'd probably watch some anime or play a game, and then sleep on their floor.
Yeah, but if someone was like an acquaintance, and they showed up at the door, I'd be like, hey.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, I might let him in, but not just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
It's like if your mom showed up at the door, you just open up and go, hi, what's doing? But if I showed up at the door, you'd be like, hey, who are you? It's that borderline that is crossed with the Front Row Crew. However, the Front Row Crew does decrease rapidly if stupid people are cut out right quick. And
the thing is,
all the stupid people right now are already cut out.
Well, the thing is, remember when I said that the group kind of coalesced and concentrated, and we kind of made the barrier, like we spontaneously generated social life. There was this sea of people that were connected, like this giant protein thing, and eventually the Front Row Crew came together and formed a cell membrane.
Yep.
And with one exception, no one has ever left or no longer been considered a part of the Front Row Crew.
Mm-hmm.
It really can't happen.
It's like anyone who was cut off was basically not all the way in the crew yet. They were outside the cell membrane, and then we just kind of squirted some toxins at them.
Yeah, they were basically a person we hung out with who, for whatever reason, either wouldn't go away or we just didn't trust or like enough to actually be considered to the crew. You really have to be awesome in our eyes.
Yeah.
And by our, I don't mean me and Scott. I mean by everyone in the crew.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, there are plenty of people who are like my friend, but everyone else is just an acquaintance to them, and we don't see them so much.
Yep. I mean, we put a lot of thought into it. No, I guess we really don't.
No, it's sort of just a common sense type of thing.
Yeah, now that I think about it.
It's just common sense, and you know who your friends are. You don't, think about it logically.
Well, a lot of people do.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of freaky.
I mean, look at all the people who, friend and defriend people in MySpace and then bitch about each other.
Yeah, we don't have that shit. If you're that kind of person, you ain't in.
Yeah, there's no drama in the crew, between crew members, ever.
It goes with my, theory of stupidity and drama. There can only be drama if there is stupidity.
Yes, and we don't put up with drama. So over the years, we've not put up as a crew with anyone who caused drama. So as a result, we'll have 20 people with us at Otakon, and it works out great because no one fights with anyone. There's no drama.
Because there's no one stupid.
But then we see, all these other groups of people trying to have hotel rooms at Otakon. There's all crazy drama. People don't pay. People don't show up. People break up with people and then have fights.
We don't deal with that shit. All right.
We're like Snorlax.
We kicked your ass to the back row. Okay. I think that covers it.
Wow, we really need some sort of way to end this because we just keep talking.
Snorlax could beat up the whole Front Row Crew. Look at that. Without Snorlax, they'd be fucked.
I don't know. I think Pete could beat up Snorlax.
Do you know how big Snorlax is?
Do you know how
You don't
big...
know shit about Pokemon, do you?
You know how big Pete is? Pete is ripped.
He's not more ripped than Snorlax.
He might be.
No. He couldn't hold 10 Pokemon.
Yeah, but Pete has the power of his Viking ancestors.
Don't mean shit in the face of some Pokemons.
All right, we're done. And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.